I have to start off by expressing surprise, actually, that I'm here at all. Because if you ask anyone if Just Giving is a social enterprise, you'll get a pretty dusty answer, and a pretty vehement one, because the answer is always no, certainly not. So, why am I here? Well, when I started Just Giving back in 1999, in early 2000, I hadn't even heard of the expression social enterprise. I doubt, actually, very many of us here had. So, how was I inspired? Why do I think of ourselves as a social enterprise? Well, I have to confess, there was no eureka moment. I didn't leap out of bed one morning and think, wow, I want to start a social enterprise. Not at all. It was much more mundane. A friend rang me up late one night and said, Zarine, let's do something in the charity sector on the internet. And I said, what? He said, yeah, let's do something in the charity sector on the internet. And I said, has this been done before? And he said, no. I thought about it for a few minutes. He said, look, I really need an answer. I'm at Heathrow. I'm about to catch a flight. I'll fund it. You do it. So I said, okay, I'll do it. Foolish. I knew nothing about small businesses. I knew nothing about starting businesses. And I knew nothing at all about the charity sector. But the thought that had occurred to me in that moment was, fundraising for charities, what does it require? Information, communications, and transaction capability. And the internet offers all of those. And the reason I make this point is, for those of you out there who haven't had the big idea, don't despair. That's not what businesses are about. They're actually about spotting an opportunity and seizing the moment and being courageous about it and then following it through. So what did we do next? Well, the first thing I had to do was to find a team. And this is what I tell people again and again and again about starting a business. Leave your ego at the door. You only have certain skills, recognize your strengths, recognize your weaknesses, and go out there and find people who complement your skills. Get the right people on the bus. I don't know if any of you have read a book by Jim Collins called From Good to Great, but it's brilliant. And his first principle is get the right people on the bus. And I'm really glad that I listened to that because it's proved invaluable. Anyway, fast forward to fundraising. Well, I don't know how many of you here have actually sat in front of venture capitalists and tried to raise money for a new idea. An idea that hadn't been done before, was totally unproven, and was in the charity sector. Impossible. Those who were too polite to laugh just said, well, we'll be in touch. Of course, they never were. But we did manage to find finance because we simply persevered. But the question I'm now asked most often is, why are we a for-profits company rather than a not-for-profits company? And I get asked that again and again and again. Given the sector we serve, why are we a for-profits company? Well, to me, the answer is actually quite simple, and Sophie's already alluded to this. I happen to believe that the disciplines which a for-profits company brings to bear on a business is likely, not always, but is likely to result in the creation of an enterprise of greater value. That is not the same thing as a profit motive. That is quite different. It's just the disciplines you bring to bear on the business are very, very different. It's the aspiration of the profit that provides the economic stimulus, I believe, for the work itself. The fact that shareholders benefit should be irrelevant. Those who actually took the risk, and in our case, believe me, it was a huge risk, with millions of their own money, should be rewarded for taking that risk. The difference is, just to go back for a second, they took a risk on an idea that hadn't been proven, as I said, was just in our collective heads. So does the fact that the ownership structure of the company disqualify it from being a social enterprise? I don't know. I don't believe so, but everyone has to make their own judgment on that. To me, the question really is irrelevant. Because like Sophie, I believe it's the purpose of the company that actually matters. And if Just Giving existed to maximize profit at any cost, then we certainly would not be a social enterprise. The raison d'etre of Just Giving is very, very different. We exist to, well, our mission is to enable ordinary people to raise extraordinary amounts of money for the causes they care about. And believe me, they humble us every single day with the stories that we read on our website. But in addition to that, we also believe that we're there to serve all our constituents in a balanced way. And what does that actually mean? It means we're there to provide an outstanding service to our users. It means that we are fair to our employees. We make it a rewarding, engaging, and fun place for them to work. And we engage with society at large in a responsible way. And incidentally, yes, we have shareholders, and we do at some stage have to divide up the profits with them as well. We don't claim to be unique in this respect. Plenty of other companies do this. But we knew we were doing something right when I was sitting in front of one of our largest charity clients who said to me, Zarine, I simply don't get you guys. It's very obvious from what you say, the way the company behaves, and from the figures that we've seen, that you're not in it for the money. And at that point, we knew, yep, we were getting the message across. We're not in it for the money alone. Why? You have to ask yourselves, and we constantly ask ourselves, why the suspicion? Henry Ford, that arch capitalist, said that a company who survives for profit alone will not succeed. And that is just so true. And then, does it work? People ask, well, how do you balance all these conflicting interests? And my reply is, well, there are no conflicting interests because we believe that you serve all stakeholders in a very balanced way. And I'd just like to end with a quote from Stuart Hampson, who most of you will know as the CEO of John Lewis, and I'll read the quote. He talks about the incredible wastefulness of business structures based on conflict rather than constructive relationships. The shibboleth, he says, of shareholder value, regardless of the significance of other stakeholders, is eroding performance. And what he advocated instead was an inclusive approach to success, using that word specifically to mean that long-term success for companies would need companies to include in that definition the contribution of its people, its customers, its suppliers, and the community it affected. And I leave you with that thought.